All right. We are going to go ahead and get started. Nice to see everyone here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, we are here today for the event Winter Weatherization, How to Get Started, Lower Heating Bills, and Save Energy. And today's event is co-hosted by Environment America Research and Policy Center, Community Energy Project, Environmental Action, and US PIRG Education Fund. My name is Johanna Newman, and I am the Senior Director of the Campaign for 100% Renewable Energy at Environment America. Our mission, and this drives everything that we do, is to protect our natural world. We envision a better, greener America, one that protects and restores the places where we all live, and that offers us and our children the opportunity to live healthier and more enriching lives. I am delighted to serve as the MC for today's event. I'm joined today by Zach Zermack, the Weatherization Coordinator with Community Energy Project, Lisa Frank, the Executive Director of the Washington Legislative Office for Environment America, and Shanika Whitehurst, the Associate Director for Product Sustainability at Consumer Reports. In terms of an agenda for today, I'll start by making some opening comments, and then we'll learn some really great do-it-yourself weatherization tips from Zach, like how to find and deal with drafts, how to heat more efficiently, and how to save money and energy with appliances and lighting. And after that, Shanika and Lisa are going to share information about how we can all, as Americans, tap the recently passed tax credits and rebates that can help us reduce energy waste. And after that, we'll take your questions. For the Q&A, we invite you to use the Q&A function on the Zoom platform, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can. So that's our plan in terms of housekeeping. So without further ado, I'll get to the heart of the matter. Now is really a moment in America for energy efficiency and weatherization. Already, the typical American family spends nearly $2,000 per year on home energy bills, and energy costs are rising all across the country. Thankfully, there are lots of solutions that can help reduce energy waste, save costs, make our homes more comfortable, and reduce the pollution that's warming our planet and making our kids sick. Saving energy through weatherization should be the first fuel we turn to. It makes our homes more efficient and comfortable, and it has lots of environmental benefits. And ultimately comes down to the best and cleanest energy being the energy that we never have to use in the first place. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce Zach Zermack, the Weatherization Coordinator with the Community Energy Project. Community Energy Project is based in Portland, Oregon, and they provide free home services focused on safety, health, and energy efficiency. They provide free community education and supplies, as well as direct home energy upgrades and repairs. All of their services are made possible by partnerships with community members and service organizations, utilities, corporations, foundations, and government agencies. Zach, we're thrilled to have your expertise here. And again, if as he's talking, questions arise, please use the Q&A function, and we'll work to get to as many as possible once our speakers are done. So take it away, Zach.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to pull up my screen and make sure that everyone can see this okay. Johanna, do you mind giving me a thumbs up? You can see that? Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm just so grateful to be here. I know there are a lot of webinars happening, every day. So you taking time out of your day to listen in, it just means a lot. And I want to hopefully we can share some things that are helpful to you in your daily lives as you try to reduce your carbon footprint, stay warm, reduce your electricity bills, and participate in the environmental movement. And just thank you to Environment Oregon and US PIRG and all these wonderful organizations and folks that are doing stuff like this every single day and working hard to help our environment. So I'm going to get started. My name is Zach Zermack. I work at Community Energy Project. I've been here for almost 2 years now, and just been helping underrepresented, underserved families in the Portland area reduce their electricity bills, stay warm, and get signed up for utility discount programs and clean energy programs. So very, very means a lot to me to do the work that we do. And it seems like it's really helping a lot of families. So this is the weatherization tips that I usually provide out in the community at schools and other community centers. Like Joanna was saying, we're a nonprofit. All of our programs are free. We're funded by the city or the utilities, some county funding, just to provide our services. And I did see a couple questions in the chat, so I'll try to address those as I go through here. But we do classes out in the community. So in the last 9 months, did it winter and summer classes. I did about 200 classes in the community, some virtual, some in person. We've served about 1,000 families. So you can do the math. Sometimes it's me with just 5 people in a class, but that's still fun. Today's a little bit busier than some of my classes, so I appreciate that. We do the weatherization classes, other stuff. And then we all, like we were saying earlier, we do direct home services. So low income homeowners in the Portland area can get a free home audit, home energy scores, and then we can do scopes of work and then do those safety repairs and energy upgrades in their attics, in their basements, in their walls, insulation, new appliances. So we just do a lot of great work all for free in the community, which makes me really proud to do work for this organization. We've been in Portland for 40 years, but so I've only been here 2 years. So this is the kit of materials that we give out. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's about all of this you can find for under $200 at your local hardware store, Home Depot, online and Amazon. It is just like DIY weatherization materials to really stop drafts, keep the heat inside your home, and start on some of these energy efficiency things. We've done up to like $40,000 worth of work inside homes here in Portland. But this is this class where everyone who comes to a class gets something to take home, and so we kind of try to make it as easy and accessible as possible, and some things that people can actually take home and use right away. And I realize I have 30 minutes, so I might have to move a little quicker. This presentation is pretty easy to follow. It's a lot of pictures, and I'm a fan of pictures. We're going to talk about home heating, saving money, saving energy, weatherization, some mold stuff. As folks in Environment America, all of us can probably agree that the climate crisis is very real and it's happening right now. And I think we all, as citizens and humans on this planet, have a responsibility to share the resources and reduce the demand that we have on some of our resources. So clean energy programs, reducing our carbon footprint are all steps we can take. So weatherization in your home, depending on what climate you're in. I know there's probably folks all across the country here, but definitely for in Oregon, we try to tell folks that the highest part of your bill is probably heating or cooling your spaces. I don't even have AC in my apartment. So in the summer, my bill's like $15. But that's also because I just don't turn on the lights, but that's my own thing. But water heating, appliances and lights, they kind of add up to the rest of your bill. So if your bill is $100, you can kind of do the math, 34, 30, and then these other things add up. We try to tell folks, especially folks on limited incomes who, are parents or, seniors or folks with disabilities. Like we just talk to a lot of folks that don't have that much money. So we try to tell them that small little steps, small changes can have big impacts when they are, added together. So we're going to make it around this circle today to show how small changes can have some big impacts. Just to kind of get grounded in why we do what we do, weatherization means basically protecting your home from extreme weather, especially cold weather. But now we're talking about summer weatherization because there's been such extreme heat, especially in the Northwest. Energy efficiency, there's a couple of different ways to think about it. You can think about it in cost, like how much are you spending for how much energy you're getting. I like to think of it as just like making a few changes about your lifestyle and your habits to reduce energy use and save money. I'm not telling anyone to go and live in a cave and never turn on lights ever again. So don't worry, nobody's going to have to go and move to a cave anytime soon. But why we give so many strategies is because, it's kind of like a mix and match and pick what works for you, but maybe something you just have to do once, like change the water temperature on your water heater. You never have to touch it again, and you're going to start saving money every single month, for the foreseeable future. Other things might be like habit changes that something that you have to think about a little more frequently. This may sound simple, but we just remind folks to heat your body before your space. If you were wearing sweaters instead of t-shirts around the house, you might not have to set your thermostat to 75 degrees. Maybe 68 or 70 is much more comfortable, which will be better for your wallet and better for your home furnace in the long run. Zach has bad voice transmission. Are you all hearing me okay?
It's coming okay on my end. So
Okay. Oh, maybe that was someone. Okay. I was like, let me just check these questions really quickly. And then I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope people can hear me. Okay. Cool. So I'm glad you can hear me. We're going to talk about two different types of heating spaces, and that person who couldn't hear me, I hope maybe that's your end. But I'm glad my end is working. So central or zonal heating, two very common types. Usually central is in a home and zonal heating is in an apartment. Like I live in an apartment, I have zonal heating. So I'll talk about both quickly here. Central heating works like a system. You're probably going to be sucking in cold air through your air return. It's going to be heated up in the furnace, whether it's oil, gas, or electric, and then it's going to be sent back out into your home through the vents or the registers. Like I said before, you can take control of this system. And there's a lot of data that shows keeping your temperature between 65 and 68 will not only feel comfortable when it's really cold outside, but is just like a really steady and efficient temperature for your furnace to save money and to keep your home comfortable. You can turn it down when you're sleeping, which is good as well. And this is as opposed to some folks who are just like turning it on and then off and then trying to heat up the whole home, which can just be more expensive in the long run and cycle your furnace many more times, which is not really great. You want it to just kind of be working steadily through the winter. You also want to check your thermostat accuracy. So if you're setting this at 65, but your thermostat's not accurate and it's trying to heat your home to 70 or it's still feeling cold, maybe your thermostat's not accurate. And that means you would have to tune your furnace. And it's just like your car, you have to change your oil, every few thousand miles, which happens every like year or two, right? Depending on how much you drive, but your furnace, probably every year or two, it's good to just do a free inspection. At least in Oregon, they do a lot of the gas utilities provide free inspections, but then it'll cost money to actually tune it. But something to think about. Obviously, if you have a central furnace, you are probably changing your filters. A good rule of thumb with your filter is if you pull it out and you can't see light coming through your filter, it's probably dirty and should be replaced, because then you're going to have poor air quality in the home. It's going to be harder for your furnace to cycle air through a dirty filter. This is just a fun picture of what happens if you don't change your filter. Maybe not a fun picture, but warning, I guess. There's also reusable filters that you can buy at Walmart or Home Depot. You just have to clean these, let them dry, and then put them back in if you don't want to throw out a bunch of paper filters all the time. And then how does placement of thermostat affect things? That's a good question. Yeah, the thermostat, should be in the central room, shouldn't be too close to windows. Or next to it, if you have a supplemental heater, like a zonal heater, and that turns on, you shouldn't have a thermostat like too close to that. You want it to be in the central part of the house, where it's kind of getting an accurate reading of the home. Okay, we're going to get to windows and doors in just a moment. So thank you for all the questions. And we'll get to windows and doors like towards the end of this presentation. So in about like 10 minutes, then I'll be done. Just for cold air return and heating vents, just this last like 2 slides on the central heater. You don't want to have furniture blocking these parts of the system, these vents, or dust buildup, because so moving furniture away, you can pull off the panel here and vacuum just so that air is moving, steadily through the system. Of course, some cold air returns are like on your ceiling, so you probably don't have to worry about furniture blocking that. And then I showed this aluminum foil tape. This is like the coolest stuff ever. It seals leaky ducts. Why this is important is duct systems can account for about 30% of the heat loss in your home, especially if they are moving through uninsulated spaces or spaces that are not meant to be heated. If there's cracks or gaps or disconnections in your ducts, all that money that you're spending to try to move either hot air or cold air through your home is just going to be leaking out your ducts. So this stuff seals that up. We put these slides here in the transition from central to zonal heating because ductless heat pumps, why it's so important to transition to these is because they're 300% more efficient than a typical heater or cooler. They do both So in the summer, you can get AC out of your ductless heat pump. In the winter, you can get heat. So maybe Shanika will talk about these and what these, a little bit more about what these are, but installing these is very easy. They are ductless. It's just a refrigerant line that goes outside. There's two parts. So you've probably seen these in homes that sit outside, sucks the either warm air, from outside in and heats up your home, or it pushes cold air, that pushes hot air out to cool your home off. But these are really, really amazing systems, and the US is just really expanding the amount of installations happening. And here in Portland, we're doing some of these for free inside homes. Okay, cool. Let's go to, we're moving around the circle, talking about energy efficiency and saving money and some quick tips and tricks for folks with zonal heating, which is me in a little apartment here in Portland. All I have is a zonal heater. What I my favorite tip that I've started to use since living here and getting through the cold weather is to really close doors between the zones or the rooms of your apartment or your home, because a zonal heater is really meant to just heat individual zones. So having it on when you're in that space, turning it off when you're not in that space, and then closing the door between the spaces so that it just works much more efficiently. Zonal heaters also have thermostats. Those, the numbers might have worn off long ago, but that is not just an on-off button. It is a thermostat. And so cranking this all the way up, I learned this when I moved to the Northwest, was like, I thought that would heat me up faster. It does not. And if you forget, it will never turn off because it probably will never get to 80 degrees in your room. So just turning these on barely will, give you the heat. It'll turn off on its own. It's a much more efficient way to use your zonal heaters. You can also clean your zonal heaters, which is good for safety, so there's not hair and dust buildup. A lot of folks use portable space heaters. These are really great. I am not an expert on which ones are more efficient. I think there are some Energy Star rated portable space heaters. There's also propane ones. So I don't know all of the nuances there, but I do know for sure you want to plug these into the wall if they're electric. Do not plug these into a power strip or even really an extension cord, just because they could fry those and then start a fire. So portable space heaters are great, but you just want to use them safely. And usually they have instructions on best practices on there. For your water heater, like I said, you can do a one-time fix on your water heater. Just change the temperature down to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. For electric, gas, tankless, if you have that, that will just save you money and will give you hot water that you need. You don't need 140 degree water. That costs you more. And it can actually cause scalding. If you have kids or seniors in the home, it can burn their hands. So that's why we talk about water heaters. The best way to just check the temperature is honestly just turn on the hot water, wait for a few minutes, use a meat thermometer or a water temperature card. It'll just pop the temperature up there. If you have an electric water heater, you want to turn off your breaker before adjusting the temperature, and then use a screwdriver. Gas water heaters are much easier. You just turn the knob, and then you would wait for about an hour to 2 hours for the water to reset, and then you could test it again. We also give out pipe insulation foam to insulate cold and hot water pipes. It's good for hot water pipes to keep the heat inside the pipe, much more efficient that way. And then for cold water pipes, especially if your water heater is in the garage, insulating the cold water pipes is a good safety measure. We also give out water conservation devices. I didn't know if I was going to use my props, but I guess I will here. So this is a little more exciting. See what other props are coming down the road. Low flow shower, faucet, kitchen aerators, reduce water use, which ends up reducing your bill because you're not paying for as much hot water. You're doing good for the environment, conserving water, reduces humidity, and then turning off the water when you're not using it is just some great strategies for water conservation. We give out power strips. They're not like the most high tech. There are smart power strips out there. We used to give some of those out, but a lot of people are saying they were kind of confusing, which is totally understandable. So a simple power strip is just as effective because, and a lot of folks don't know that, vampire energy, phantom power, all these words for the idea that things that are plugged into the wall are still consuming electricity even when they're off. So about 10 to 15% of your bill every single month are things that are just plugged in that are not even on. These are a couple of the culprits, right? Phone chargers, electronics, maybe microwaves, lamps. So just plugging it into a power strip and hitting a button instead of unplugging stuff is probably better on your time. I don't walk around my apartment unplugging things. So I wouldn't tell you to do that. I just use a power strip. Of course, you're never going to unplug your refrigerator. A person did ask me a great question earlier about unplugging your oven when you're not using it. And I have not had time. This was like yesterday. They asked me that. I have not time to do that research. Maybe someone can help me out later. LED lights, we give out 3 of these. Everyone knows how amazing LED lights are. Cheaper, last years longer. I just talked about the kitchen, kind of the oven uses the most electricity in your kitchen. If it's gas, then it can be causing some air pollution from the methane that's coming off of it, which we've been hearing a lot about recently. But the point of this slide is to show that crock pots, toaster ovens, microwaves, air fryers, which I know are the big thing now, use a lot less electricity than an oven. So things about, what appliances are you using? Always shut it off at night. Does that use a lot of power? My internet? No, I don't. That's a good question about the modem. Yeah, I'd leave that on all the time. I'm not sure how much they use. Maybe there's Energy Star modems, but I would recommend keeping your internet on. Your refrigerator, keeping that plugged in. Fridge 38 and 0, or 38 to 40 and 0 is kind of what manufacturers recommend, so that the fridge is, extends the life, so you don't have to replace your fridge if it's working too hard or, set at the wrong temperature. For washers and dryers, dishes, there's just a big movement to wash clothes with cold water washes. I do that. I think it's great. You're not using hot water. I think what I've heard is that the only thing you really need to clean with hot water, like diapers or something that's really dirty. Everything else, can be cleaned with cold water. Dryers, this is very important. This picture here of the vent being clogged, this is very real. I was talking to someone in one of my classes at a school the other day, and a parent was like, yeah, my dryer caught on fire because we moved into a house and we didn't check the vent. So this is real stuff that this can be dangerous to not clean out. You also want it to make sure that the vent is actually exhausting outside, so that extra moisture is not coming into the home and causing potentially humidity or mold. All right, I hope I'm doing good on time here. 25. Just a few more minutes, folks. I want to just talk about weatherizing like the doors and the windows and cracks and gaps in the home, because I did see a couple of questions there. In the chat, which were really good. So, like I said, we give out these materials. If anyone here lives in Portland, anyone here, is income qualified, which is based on the area median income, which is household size and income, reach out to us. I will post my contact information in the chat. You can, we are here every single day over the winter, providing classes in the community. Totally free, open to the public, where you can attend and get one of these take-home kits with all the materials that I'm talking about today, and connection to our other free programs for folks that are income qualified. If you're not, you have to go to the store because I can't ship these across the country. I'm sorry. Okay. So common interior air leaks. This is one of my favorite pictures on our presentation, because it just really helps conceptualize the idea of why we're doing what we're doing, and why weatherization and insulation and draft stopping, all these words that kind of mean the same thing of, just keeping yourself comfortable in your home, reducing your bills. This is what I think, this is the start of the future of, efficient homes. Zero homes are just homes that are really keeping the air inside their home, the hot air that they're paying for inside their home, for as long as possible, and not letting air seep out through all of these places. That's what this error is showing, is that cracks and gaps are causing leaks in your home or your apartment. And that's what's really, causing discomfort and causing higher bills, especially in the winter. In the summer, you just, if hot air is coming inside your apartment or your home, that just makes you uncomfortable, miserable. And all of these strategies kind of work in the summer as well. But this is another way of showing that. Common places for air leaks, right, are outlets, ducts, plumbing, windows, doors, fans, vents, fireplaces, connections between ceilings or walls and floors, all of these spots. And to check for air leaks, you can use incense or candles. I've seen like a bunch of, I know maybe not everyone feels comfortable doing that, but in my apartment, just doing an incense and seeing the smoke being sucked out, through my door or through my baseboards. That's a very common way of checking air leaks. You can also just wet your hands, and if you feel cold air, or you might not even need to do that. You might just be able to see it happening. If there's light coming in through it, there's probably air coming in. Backer rod is a great thing to use. It's a squishy foam. Everything we give you is plastic and foam. I know that's not great for us environmentalists out here who want to, are anti-plastic, which I totally agree with that. Plastic and foam are bad, but I've just talked to a lot of families that like to use fabric or towels to like plug holes and gaps in their homes or apartments, and that can just absorb a lot of moisture and potentially cause more mold, and then affect the air quality. As we know, mold is just not good to breathe in. So unfortunately, a lot of weatherization materials are going to be plastic and foam. For your fireplace, there's DIY stuff. You can buy foam board, or you can buy these dampeners. We don't give these out, but you can find those that can really plug the fireplace or the chimney. We do give out a bunch of these super cool outlet gaskets. See, my props are coming in handy. I knew this would happen. I knew I was going to count on these. For outlets and switches, it's best to put these on your exterior walls, where there's a lot more, especially if your wall is not, your wall is not insulated, or the insulation is not working very well. Right behind the faceplate. This was under my bathroom sink. I didn't realize that there was this gigantic hole between my plumbing and the drywall. So we try to give out a bunch of materials like rope caulk. See, I have another. It's kind of this just, it's like temporary caulking, but it's very similar to caulk, that it just, form fits, you squish it in there. This was under my baseboard, or this was my baseboard here. There was air coming in through this crack along the floor. So this is great stuff. I recommend using it, and it's fun for people who don't really know much about contract work like myself. So I was like, oh, I can do some of this stuff. So very empowering to take control of your home and your comfort and your bills by a couple of simple steps. So I just want to talk about windows and doors, and then I'll pass it on to Shanika and the rest of the folks here. This picture is showing heat loss through windows and doors. So there's heat inside the home. This heat radar sensor was looking at those vulnerable places in the house, which are windows for sure and doors, and you can see heat moving out through these spaces. Afterwards, after the window is insulated, right, this green, that means there's no more heat transfer. And that's what we're trying to do with all of our windows and doors, is to keep the heat inside the home, especially in the winter. Yes, what we give folks is plastic that covers the window, as you can see here. Unfortunately for the cat, they're realizing that they can't leave now. I'm kidding. The cat, of course you can take it off after the winter, but these are all indoor tools that we provide for folks. You just need scissors and tape measure to put this stuff on. This hair dryer I can talk about in a moment here, but we get these window insulation kits from Frost King. They're like some of the best in the business. They've been around for a long time in weatherization materials. You've probably heard of them. I saw some people asking in the chat, like, what are the best door and window insulation materials that can stick on for a while? I absolutely recommend like Frost King materials, but there's others out there. At least for this window insulation stuff, you want to clean and dry your windows so that the tape, the double-sided tape that's in here, which is really strong, can just get a nice setting around the window. There's about 84 feet of this, and then there's about 12 feet of plastic. So you cut it into a couple pieces, you can do 3 or 4 windows. The double-sided tape goes on first. I hope I'm not going too fast. I just don't want to take too long. then you measure out the plastic. You peel off the second side of the tape that you would put around the window. I know a lot of people ask me like, what do you do with your blinds and stuff? You know, you can cut a little hole for the blind string, or you can just like, you know, if you have more windows, maybe one window you just, you know, leave open or leave closed for the winter. You know, I know I don't want to offend anyone with the with the like what to do with your blinds, but you know, there's a couple of different strategies so that you can still use your window and still, you know, but still stay warm. So then you start, once you take off the second side of the plastic, this is me putting this on my apartment, right? It's best to start at the top and then let the plastic kind of fall down and then press it on the tape there. It doesn't need to be super tight, because the most important thing that's happening here, it's actually not that the plastic is insulating your home. It's a thin plastic that wouldn't, you know, do much. That's what your walls and, you know, other stuff are for. The plastic creates an air barrier between the glass on your window and the plastic. So this pocket of air acts as an air barrier, an insulation barrier, so that more air from outside specifically doesn't then move through that. So that air barrier, that pocket of air, is actually what's insulating your home. And it's really, really effective. So, you know, when you put this up, you know, you might be sitting there like, how is this going to work? It's a really great DIY strategy. This is where the hairdryer comes in. You can see there's instructions on the stuff that we give, or when you buy it, or you can find YouTube videos, but folks like to like this. You don't need this to make it work, but they like to like flatten out the plastic with the hair dryer. You know, up to you. And then there's extra plastic hanging off. You can just cut that off. I want to talk about doors, and then I'm going to hand it off. If you've ever seen light coming around your door or your windows, or your frame, you know, the frame, there's probably air coming in, maybe some bugs. Sorry to break the news. That's why we give you a couple materials: foam tape, V-seal. And then for folks that were asking in the chat, like, what's the really like more temporary stuff? We used to, or actually the folks that go into homes from our organization for free, they usually do stuff that you nail into the door jamb. Like, you know, there's a metal frame that is extendable to the size of the door, and then you nail that in, and then there's like a foam that is attached to that metal insert. Those are very, very good and can stay up for years. This is the stuff that we give out is very renter friendly, but the adhesive is very strong. So I put this on in the summer. As you can see, it's really sunny outside. This is around my door. I put this foam tape, close the door overnight. And, you know, that was 6 months ago. And now I come in and out of my door, and this stuff is, you know, squished on there, and there's no more light coming in. V-seal too. I put this on the inside where the door was closing, just because there was a space there as well. And it's all staying up there. Same thing with the door sweep. That there was a crack under my door, and under most doors probably. You can put a door sweep on there. A lot of folk, you might need to use a threshold. This is on the right. If your door is still too high, or the door sweep doesn't reach all the way down to the floor, but you definitely don't want to install the door sweep too low, and it'll just break as it's dragging along the floor. Okay, we're almost all the way around the circle. Very, very, very good. Okay, preventing mold. And then we're going to be done here. So thanks all again for paying attention, asking questions. We'll try to maybe address those in the rest of the chat at the end, but awesome. So there's a lot of sources of excess humidity in the home: kitchens, bathrooms, plants, pets, maybe, like a lot of people walking around. If you don't have bathroom vents, stuff. So mold just grows with moisture. That's the only thing you can really control. Other stuff like oxygen, temperature, like, is kind of hard to control. So moisture is the key to controlling mold. The thing about weatherization, this does not always happen, but something to think about is that weatherization could possibly make more moisture in the home, because you're sealing up the home, you're closing all these gaps, you're stopping this extra airflow. That natural ventilation of air was probably drying moisture. So the one pro of all this cold air flowing into your home in the winter is that it's drying moisture. But I don't think that's a good, argument for not weatherizing your home. I would just say, it's good to clean mold. If you see it with vinegar or hydrogen peroxide, definitely want to wear a mask so that as you're disturbing the mold, you're not breathing that air in. If you have bathroom vents or fans, it's good to use your bathroom vent for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes after you finish a shower, especially in the winter, because all that steam is being created. Yep. So trying to control the humidity using your vents and stuff like that. There's a good toilet paper test to see if your vent is even working when you turn it on. Covering lids if you are cooking. Standing water, leaking water can cause mold. So make sure if you see any leaking water, that's want to get that fixed as soon as possible. If you're a renter, maintenance will probably have to do that. If you're a homeowner, you'd probably have to get some help or do it yourself, DIY. We do install moisture barriers in homes here in Portland because this is a great protection for the home. So especially if you're in your crawl space, there's just open soil. So that's what a moisture barrier is. For insulated, a lot of folks winterize their spigots and stuff like that before the winter. This is great. And then pipes in your crawl space. Like I said, if your water heater's in your garage, where it's exposed to the, really low temperatures, you want to do some weatherization or winterization there. And then a lot of folks don't check their downspouts, and that water might be coming back into the home. So good downspouts is what I might have to end on. No, I'm kidding. What I'm ending on is this, image and why we do what we do, because we just try to give folks who might not have, who might not have much, spent extra income. We give them a bunch of free things and a bunch of free programs to really do great work in their homes and empower them to sign up for programs and save money and stay comfortable. So I'm going to end there. Thank you so much, y'all, for the time and for the questions. I hope this was helpful, and I will obviously stick around for the Q&A.
Zach, that is so great. Thank you so much. We've been trying to answer questions while Zach has been answering. Maybe he'll make a pass through as well. And then we'll obviously talk through some of the questions as well. But before we do that, I am excited to hand it over to more of the policy realm. So next, I'd like to introduce Lisa Frank. Lisa is the Executive Director of the Washington Legislative Office of Environment America. Lisa, take it away.
Thank you so much. That was great, Zach. And I feel so vindicated. I grew up in a house where we kept the thermostat at 66. We turned it off at night. We turned it off every time we left. The temperature would drop down into the 50s. We'd freeze. We'd jack the heat back up. So glad to know that you can actually just keep it a nice, stable, comfortable temperature. Thank you. So many of the great projects that Zach walked us through are things that you can do yourself, right? They're not too expensive. They're relatively easy to do, but there are some bigger projects that can also help you save energy, or even bigger projects like replacing appliances that take more planning and resources.
Zach, you might be the best person for this, but Shanika, chime in if you have thoughts as well. Basically, the person posing the question says that they already try to use cold water as much as possible for dishwashing and clothes drying, but they have an on-demand hot water heater, and they lose a lot of water in their home as they're waiting for hot water to reach far away faucets. And they were wondering what you all can say about hot water recirculators at individual faucets. So if you could just talk about what that technology is, how it might work. Otherwise, we can try to track down an answer from someone else.
I would probably point I guess I have one question back to the individual. When they're talking about the recirculate, they're not talking about the heat exchanger water heaters, correct?
I don't think so. I mean, you could talk about heat exchangers a little bit, because I do think they're an often overlooked energy saving tip. And given how much energy in the home goes to water heating, I think it would be cool for people to know about that. But my guess is this is a little bit different. Okay. So unfortunately, I can't answer your question to the full extent about the circulatory, but definitely I can see what resources I can provide back to you guys to send out.
But in regards to the heat exchanger, right? So the heat exchange, what that does is now it removes the need for you to have the big hot water tank, right? So that at least is a what, $600 to $700 cost right off the top. Never mind the energy that it takes to heat up the water, have the water be constantly on heat, especially if it's gas powered or electrical, in that nature. What the heat exchange water heater does is, as soon as you turn on your faucet, it sends that signal to the heat exchanger. It starts pulling water through and does like an instant heat up of that water before it's dispersed through your household. So I don't know if that could help solve your problem as far as the circulatory aspects, but it does actually, it can help in removal of the actual hot water heater itself. And under the IRA, that may be included in energy efficient improvements, and there could be some funds available for its installation.
Great. Zach, do you have anything to add on that? Otherwise, I'll move on to our next question. Cool. Okay, here's one. Is a heat pump worthwhile in my area where nighttime temperatures are dropping below freezing every single night? So anybody eager to take that one?
I would say all the studies that we're getting about heat pumps is that they are efficient even in below freezing temperatures. So the technology is absolutely, you know, up to par. It is getting better and better every year. Other countries have moved to heat pumps at astonishing rates. I think like Asia is at 90% heat pump installation rate for, you know, their homes and apartments. So I don't think you have anything to worry about. I've seen pictures of heat pumps with snow on them. You know, and like people are still happy in their homes. So I don't think it's something to fear. I think the technology is pretty robust and effective.
I'll add to that and say there's a few different types of heat pumps that are, you know, different ones might be best for different sizes of homes and temperatures. So I recommend getting a couple contractors to check out your home and recommend the one that's going to work for you, but have also been hearing the same. We have a colleague who lives in Chicago where, you know, certainly it gets quite cold, and knows a contractor who's installed lots and lots of heat pump systems in recent years, often with gas backup for people that were worried about this. They've never had to use the gas. So they've been getting better and better, and there's lots of tax credits that can help you make that switch if you're interested.
And I will say, everybody's excited to talk about heat pumps. So at Environment America, we have a campaign called our Clean Energy Homes campaign, and this Clean Energy Home Toolkit that this webinar is part of, you know, is aimed at helping all of us make our homes clean energy homes. We're planning an additional webinar and resource sequence early in the spring, specifically on heat pumps. And so we'll do a real deep dive into the different technologies at that point, what the pros and cons are and what the current state of the technology is and how to tap into the tax credits and rebates. Because we need massive deployment of this technology in the United States. Our goal in our campaign is to get 75 million heat pumps installed across America by 2025. Which is a big goal. And it means people like us need to get ourselves educated and figure out, you know, how we can be part of the solution as we, you know, replace heating systems. All right. Here's a question from Bruce. It's a question about attic and wall insulation. Bruce says, I need to address both items in my home. Are there programs in place to help the homeowner with the very substantial cost of insulation? Shanika, Zach, anybody want to take this on? Great.
Shanika, you want to go ahead?
I would say with that, you know, I think that's where the energy audits really come into play there too. But because it technically should qualify as making your home more energy efficient. I mean, that's what insulation does, right? There should be some costs to offset that for you. Provided in the IRA, but again, like I said, probably one of the best bets to try to use that is to try to use like an estimator or a calculator from that perspective. And you know, sometimes it's going to be really dependent upon your income, which is going to be a big driver of some of the funds that you could get back.
Okay, so I would say that's, I totally agree, as we're looking at what's in the, all these incentives, right, in the IRA from the Rewiring America, and which all of y'all know about, is weatherization is only $1,600, which of course an attic insulation can be up to 20 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand sometimes, or wall insulation, right, because they have to get in there, blow stuff in there, so it can install stuff. So what I would say is go through weatherization assistance program, the WAP program, if you are income qualified. They fund various county programs, various city programs. Like Joanna said, there's $3.5 billion more going to weather assistance programs to, weatherize millions of homes around the country. I've seen them in homes. There's a little bit of a wait list sometimes, if there's only a couple of staff doing it in your county, which it can be the case sometimes, especially if you're outside of larger cities. But if you are income qualified, you should connect with the local distributor or community partner of the weatherization assistance program, and they can do up to $20,000-$30,000 worth of work in your home, starting with insulation. Then they get to the furnace, then they get to the windows, but they will start with that sometimes. So that's where I would look to.
Yeah, thanks both. And I just put a resource in the chat from Department of Energy on how to find out if you can qualify for that program and where to find your state point person to get started. There is also new funding from the infrastructure law that passed last year for a revolving loan program where, a lot of these improvements take money up front, but then you save the money back. So there's going to be more funding for those types of programs across the country as well. So there should be more options to figure out how to finance these types of programs.
So great. All right, here's our last and final question. It says, will there be a link to the recording of this? And will you be sending out any links for more info and the programs available? It's a perfect question to end on. We plan on posting a recording of today's event on YouTube and send everyone who registered for the event an email with a link to the recording, as well as links to the resources that we've shared today in the chat and the Q&A. And then, like I alluded to, in addition to us taking steps to make our homes clean energy homes that are efficient, one of our hopes from doing this event is that everyone shares these resources with your friends and your families, so that as many people as possible take advantage of these opportunities to save energy, save money, make our homes more comfortable, and reduce pollution to make our planet more livable. So with that, I want to thank our panelists, Zach, Lisa, and Shanika. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a true pleasure. And thank you to everyone who came today. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.